assistance where states neglect certain school districts. So no, I wouldn't completely eradicate it, but it has become bloated and inefficient. So it can be streamlined and it can be corrected. I think when Carter first, implemented the program, it was a good idea, and it's kind of changed. And that can be transformed back into something that's positive. When we talk about other programs, there's so many to mention, right? The biggest one, I think, for me would be, at this point, which I think is something that's still, prevalent, that's going on, is the CARES Act, which I think we should, get away with and not continue to extend that. Any type of, additional spending. To put my finger on one exact program that I would say is continuing to distort the country is kind of hard. Tough question, because I think that's such a large number of programs out there. I can't really put my finger on it. But when it comes to the main question of education is very important to me. My wife is a teacher. I can tell you right now, the state, this county, has a ton of money. My wife asked me to pick up paper for her classroom to print out. Superintendent makes more than the governor of Georgia. It's a major issue. So is that really a federal issue, or is that a state issue? So public schools are broken. It is a major issue, and it does need to be fixed.
So I do have a target, and it is the Department of Education, because the Department of Education has absolutely nothing to do with state and county schools at all. That is a fact. It only has to do with giving loans and to make sure that children are funneled, or people that go to college are funneled through this program so it can up the price of a college education. The Department of Education needs to go away entirely. There's nothing that needs to be salvaged from it. The Department of Homeland Security, the CIA, the Department of Justice, all of those have a lot of fluff in them. And it's not just, fluff as in silliness. It's fluff as in overlapping responsibilities by folks in organizations. And many other departments have exactly the same thing. The Office of Management and Budget does give you that breakdown. I do believe in a lot less federal government. It is extremely difficult to do something about that, though, because everybody else loves to grow the monster. Even Republicans love to grow the monster. I remember when George Bush created Homeland Security, it was actually just another agency. He didn't do anything other than make another agency and kind of use a little eyewash for us. There needs to be, not needs to be, I will be looking at all of that because I do want to make sure that we cut. And yesterday I said something terribly rude. If you're a federal employee, I want your job. I don't want you to keep it. I want you to either move someplace better within the department, but I want a lot less federal jobs out there.
All right, once again, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud to you because you're going to hear politicians do a whole lot of talking. As far as the Department of Education, I think it needs to be revamped. And when I'm in these schools, especially in Gwinnett County schools and the high schools, and I'm talking to the teachers when we're doing my anti-CRT de-escalation classes, the teachers are talking to me. Not all teachers believe in this garbage, okay? What the problem is the teachers' unions. The unions are pushing this stuff through. Coming from the federal government, using the unions and pushing the ideology through. There are a lot of teachers, when you actually sit down and talk to them, when they're not being recorded, but a lot of them have been threatened. They said, if you don't roll with the mask issue, if you don't roll with the CRT stuff, if you don't roll with what we're telling you, then you lose your job. With the economy in the toilet the way it is, no one can afford to lose the income. So they stay quiet because they feel they can't fight back. But they all said, YG, the issue is our bosses in the unions. We are tired of being demonized. All of us are not that way. We don't need to put blanket statements on teachers. Like white people don't need to have blanket statements. Black people don't need to have blanket statements. But if you talk to these teachers, it is the unions that I want to go after. Because these are the forces that's pushing the indoctrination into the schools that is ruining what used to be a beautiful partnership of school board members, parents, and the teachers with the kids, focusing on making sure the kids can graduate, actually have an education, and go pursue their American dream. School is not about the school of indoctrination. It's about the school to be educated and to move on in this world and learn how to connect and talk to people instead of being separated by race or sexuality like books called the Gay BCs that's being taught to third graders right now. Gay BCs. Look it up.
Well, I can't think of one that I would get rid of because I think that they were all there for a reason and an important reason, or they wouldn't be here. So I'll just take this opportunity to defend the Department of Education. As a school teacher of 20 years, and actually my husband, if he were here, he would say get rid of the Department of Education. But you know, it's interesting that it wasn't included in our Constitution, even though some of our founding fathers thought it was important. An educated citizenry, an educated electorate is very important. And I consider education the great equalizer, that all students should have the opportunity to pursue any path that they choose. And I've taught in different school districts, and I've seen the inequity in education because right now education is deferred to the states and local governments. I just crossed a county line and saw that my students that I was going to teach didn't have classroom computers. There wasn't a book room. So if the state and local if they're not able to provide all of the opportunities and materials for students, then someone needs to step in so that all children have the opportunity and have equal resources in any school that they are in this country, so that they can have the same opportunity as any other child in this country.
Yes, I would abolish the Department of Education. It's very clear on my website. We spend $102 billion on the Department of Education. Now here's the thing. When we started the Department of Education, we as a country were at the top of the class. We were the envy of the world. They all started copying us to raise up their own standards. So what's happened since we did that? Well, we've had a precipitous fall. We're now, depending on the research you want to look at, 35th, 40th on the world stage. Many of us would be hard-pressed to name 35, 40 countries very quickly, right? So we need to abolish the Department of Education. We need to eliminate Common Core. As far as other agencies are concerned, the IRS, it's time that it goes away. I'm a fair tax person. So I believe in a consumption tax. Why do I believe in it? By the way, in the fair tax, there is a prebate part of the fair tax to be able to be less onerous for those that can least afford it. But I believe everyone should have a stake in the governance of their country. And you do that through your participation with your tax dollars. If you don't pay taxes, it's very easy to think that it's somebody else's responsibility. So the IRS is another one. The Department of Energy needs to be seriously looked at. The EPA. How about the FBI and the CIA? These agencies, all three-letter agencies, should be under very, very, very tight scrutiny now because they're failing us. It's we the people, and it's failing us.
Mary, you're up. It's got some length to it, but bear with me. You have won the 7th Congressional District seat. Do you believe that House Representatives, Senators, President, White House staff, and all federal employees were more valuable than the voters who elected you? If not, would you consider putting the federal health plan into Medicare? Would you consider putting the federal retirement plan into Social Security, putting all our names on Social Security account, removing Social Security from the general fund, ending serfs, known as the general public, versus the federal employees on its royalty?
That was too many questions for my little brain. I need to see it in writing, actually. So let me try to take a stab at this. So I'm used to representing my constituency. Everybody who I go see gets my personal cell phone number, and the kind of campaigns I have always waged, if you will do that, is I actually go see people who vote. I go to their door, I give them my, just a sheet, give them my home phone number. Back then, it was my home phone number, and now it's my cell phone. Same cell phone I've had for 30 years. People call me, they ask me all kinds of questions, they tell me what it is they're interested in, and I actually use a lot of my constituents, as I'm used to calling people constituents. They're not constituents yet, but I count folks as constituents. What it is you want me to do and how you can help. What information you can give to me. Because I know I don't know everything. But I know that there's a lot of people out there who do know a heck of a lot in areas I don't, and I love to hear what they have to say. Now, for all that stuff that was put all this and that and the other thing, so I am dead set against the Affordable Care Act. I am dead set against any kind of health program that is government. You need to have a health program that's either you can purchase it at an affordable price from an insurance company. We've never incentivized insurance companies to do that, and states have never made them do it. The federal government is not the place for this. I kind of got lost in all those questions. I apologize. It's getting late.
Okay. That was a lengthy question. Here's the simple answer. I am no better than anybody else. Period. Just like I believe in term limits. I do not believe, honestly, that representatives should live half the hog in their constituencies suffer. There are so many people who can't even afford health care. And a lot of these people, these politicians, they live in these ivory houses. They don't live our experience. They don't understand what it's like to either I'm going to pay for food, but I got to take my kid, they're sick now, and I can't even afford the health care because it's too doggone expensive. So are we going to take care of John, or are we going to starve for 3 days? This is the real issues, man. I mean, like I said, how many times we got to keep talking about this stuff? We talk about it every election cycle. It's always the same questions, and we keep sending people who say they're going to do something, and then they don't do it. Then we get mad, rinse and repeat. The issue is elected officials are public servants. They are no better than you. They don't need to live higher than you. If they want to have high interest or whatever health insurance, then everybody have it. The country can't afford that. So guess what? They need to be able to pay for insurance like everybody else. And if you can't make it work as an official, then you just don't need to be in the job. Stop spending.
I said earlier, I think that Americans deserve affordable and accessible health care. For one, I would repeal Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act is more like the Unaffordable Care Act. As a hardworking school teacher, I saw not only my monthly premiums double, but triple by the time Obama left office. And I wonder whose health care am I paying for? Illegal immigrants. We're paying for their health care, and they're not paying into it. I believe you also mentioned Social Security. In fact, I got an email from a voter about Social Security, a school teacher who's worried about there's some kind of law that is penalizing teachers and police officers, our firewomen, that they can't, collect Social Security as much as they paid into it. And I've heard that we're going to run out of Social Security, and that concerns me because I'm paying into it. And I want that to be there for me and for all Americans who pay into it.
We have a military-industrial complex, right? We also have a medical industrial complex today. Healthcare is the only thing that we buy where we have absolutely no idea what it costs. There's no transparency in healthcare. We need to bring free market principles to healthcare. Free market creates an environment of competition, which will improve quality and lower price. To federalize healthcare, how good is our U.S. Postal Service doing against a company like Federal Express or UPS as a perfect example? So there are solutions that are far different than what's being put forth in Washington, D.C. Now, as far as Social Security, it's your money. It's your money. Many of you here have worked a lifetime to have that Social Security. That needs to be protected at all costs. That's what's fair and that's what's right.
Yes, what you pay for is what you deserve to get. Social Security, Medicare, need to protect those. Now, Affordable Health Care Act, should it be abolished? I don't think so. I think it needs to be streamlined and there needs to be some efficiencies to it. As Mark mentioned, our healthcare system's a mess. Nobody knows what they're buying. It's not like buying a car. My premiums are ridiculous. My deductible's ridiculous. I call it to go home, go big or go home, right? Get hurt, get in a huge car accident, or maybe this bump on me. I probably shouldn't go see a specialist because I'm going to have to pay $900 because I have been my ridiculous deductible on top of my ridiculous premiums. So we're forced into this box. So there needs to be reform across the board. Everybody looks at it. Do we need to provide universal health care by the government? No. I mean, we all know we're looking at going to any government-run agency. The customer care is not the best, right? You really want your doctor, your nurses running that? No. But there are instances where it helps. I have a personal case where my sister-in-law, she was out of a job, and the only thing she could afford was Obamacare, and she had breast cancer. So it helped her. So there are instances where it can help. Now, is it run efficiently? That's another question. It can be run efficiently. But we've got to look into it. And as YG said, a lot of people stand up here and preach about it. It's not about more spending. It's about putting together commissions, looking into it, figuring out a way to make it work for all Americans. And also creating competition in the private sector to give Americans more choices and more transparency in what it is that they're buying. Not getting stuck with ridiculous bills. We need to go see a back specialist the other day. 20 minutes I was in there. Told me to go get an MRI. I've already had an MRI 2 years ago. Go get an MRI. Get the bill from them. $700 for 20 minutes. So what are we paying for? Nobody knows. Nobody can explain it to you. So there needs to be health care reform across the board.
YG, how are you going to defeat the incumbent Democrat and appeal to this district?
This is real simple. It's not go and talk to people. As I said earlier, the thing that has been holding the GOP back is that the GOP has failed to go and talk to other people. The best way that we're going to win this district is not just to make the Republicans happy or to just say the things that's going to make the Republicans feel good. We're going to need all the Republicans. We're going to have to also inspire the people who don't vote in primaries to get out and vote. And we actually have to go and talk to Democrats. People who look different than you. People who think different than you. Guess what? Everybody is hurting with this inflation right now. Everybody is suffering right now, and everybody is so sick of these Democrats and establishment GOP. They're done. If you actually go and talk to people in these communities who have been suffering and hurting deep in the deep blue districts that folks on this side don't want to go and talk to, you will see they have a whole lot in common. And they are ready. They don't want Carolyn Bedole. They don't even know who Lucy McBeth is. They won't change. And they're not looking for a D or an R. They're looking for somebody to represent them. That is it. That's it. That's how we win. We go and we get them. We pray with them and we talk about the policies and we show they see, because real is real. Everybody's hurting. Everybody's tired. Everybody's done. I'm the one that's going in every single day to get them. And that's how we win. Not typical politician stuff. Go in with the faith. Love, care, talk, and go get it. That's it.
Well, I hope having a D next to your name is going to stand for a disadvantage and be a disadvantage. I agree with that. The things that are impacting people the most are affecting Democrats and Republicans. Gas prices, inflation, our soaring national debt. These are all issues. I've had to make hard choices at the grocery store because of inflation. I think that's affecting Democrats as well as Republicans. And I find it hard to believe that they would vote to keep this going. And how much worse can it get if they stay in office? And I've actually seen one opponent, McBath's ads, and not talking about any issues that are important. Talking about the danger that Medicare is in. Well, I haven't heard that that's a problem. That they support small businesses. Well, look what the pandemic and the draconian measures have done to small businesses in our community. Talking about voter suppression because of Georgia's law, which actually is about voter integrity and making it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And, for me personally, I know that we're all facing an uphill battle, but I think these common concerns, regardless of party, are going to matter, and we need to put an end to these liberal policies that are destroying our country. Illegal immigration that's impacting our schools and hospitals and workforce. These are things that are going to matter to kids, Democrat or Republican. And personally, I think issues pro-environment, supporting women's rights are going to maybe more marketable in the general election, appeal to the Democratic base for voters who care about those issues.
The best asset we have as a party is Joe Biden. We do have an uphill climb, but I have to tell you something. These numbers are shrinking, and they're shrinking really fast. And it's not because of any one of us, with all due respect to our campaigning. It does have to do with Joe Biden. The inflation this year will cost the average American family $5,200. 60% of our American families don't have $1,000 of liquidity of cash to take care of an emergency. At what point are we going to run out of money? Have you looked at the credit card debt lately? When we collapsed in 2008, 2009, it was a fraction debt of what it is now. So our best asset is, in fact, Joe Biden being now 0 for 15. 0 for 15. He hasn't done a single thing that's helped the American people or our nation. I see our mayor in the back. When he became mayor, there were a lot of doubters. They said, oh, Johns Creek, it's turned blue. He doesn't really have a chance. It's turned blue. Well, guess what? He won by a pretty considerable margin. And this was before the full-on Joe Biden effect. How about Virginia? Virginia was another one that we weren't supposed to win. But we did. And that was before the Joe Biden effect. I actually put a task force together for the Hispanic community, our Hispanic community. What we learned was incredible. To YT's point, as a party, we haven't done any sort of messaging to the Hispanic community. We have incredible unifiers. Pro-family, pro-life, pro-small government, pro-small business. pro-good opportunity, pro-better schools, and pro-safety for our community. We have a way to win. We just have to outwork, outsmart, and outthink our competition. And I gotta tell you, we can do all of those things.
Like I mentioned earlier, right now we're projected as a 16-point underdog, which is huge. That's why YG said they throw away this district, right? 16 points is huge. DC is not looking at us to win. Right here in John Street, they don't win it, right? Either a gentleman or a lady asked the question, say from South Gwinnett. What are we going to do to appeal to the rest of the voters in this district to win? Yes, we have a chance right now. We have moderates that were Republicans that left us in 2020 that we can win back. We've got moderate Democrats who are not happy that we can win back. We've got independents that we can win in this next election. We can close that gap, but not with the same old same. We've got to have crossover, we've got to have appeal. And we've got to have a candidate that can do that in November. We've got to think big picture. We win primary, woohoo. What does that mean? We got to think about winning the general election. So, my crossover appeal is kind of a personal story for me, and not putting my wife on the spot, but as being in interracial marriage, it has opened my eyes to a lot of things. In this country, in this world, conversations that I have with white people that don't know an interracial marriage. There is racism out there, it's alive and well. She's also a Democrat. Yeah. Toughest person we know, right there. But guess what? That's what we have to do. Okay? That's what we're facing. So, we gotta stop fooling ourselves. We're gonna win John Street, yeah. You're gonna win Peachtree Corners, woo! You win South Gwinnett? You gonna win other parts of this county? No, you're not. We're gonna get crushed. We need to have somebody that has appeal, that can energize younger voters, that can energize the people that are not happy in this country, that are not traditional Republicans. We don't have that. We don't have a dog in the fight. I want to be the dog in the fight. I don't usually like being called a dog unless it's in Athens on Saturdays, but I want to be that dog in the fight. Thank you.
I am a big planner. I already have planned my general election campaign. So what I do though is really simple. I've won 3 elections. I won all 3 of them by doing exactly the same thing. I had just gotten out of the Army, so I did an operations order. Any of you who've been in the military, it's, what's my mission? What assets do I need? That's how I start out my campaign. I get it prepared, and then I execute it. And I don't deviate. I do not deviate. I do not add anything that is extra. If I have a certain target audience, I only see that audience. I have already in this race, and this district just got drawn in December, I've already seen several thousand people who vote Republican and have voted in the last 3 out of 4 elections. I've seen them, and they have husbands and wives at home. I skip around, and I plan on doing exactly the same thing in the general election. Because it works. People tell you what they want. They will tell you. It's like doing a poll, live poll, every single time. And I go see the people that vote in a general election. I don't care if they're a Democrat or a Republican or independent. It's like, do you vote? That's what I care about. I care if you use the right that you've been given by our Constitution. If you exercise that right, I'm going to go see you. I'm going to listen to what you have to say. And I'm going to tell you what I think too. I'm not going to always agree with you, but you're going to see it we're going to do it face to face.
Ladies and gentlemen, with the exception of the person who forgets to turn the ringer off, I want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I think it was wonderful. We got to 12 questions, which is rare when you have 5 candidates. And now I'm going to ask you to do what I've been telling you not to do. Would you give a round of applause to all 5 candidates?